Okay, for people joining this meeting, was actually postponed from yesterday, which is why it has the wrong date on it. This is about the design of Dataset, and it's quite a bit to go over. By the way, this form where you're doing like the text element things like this is a nice form to illustrate things in. How did you generate this? Did you generate it with text element?
Just a graphic. No, it's just a graphic.
I see, because I think that putting in text element, I mean, having something that is a display form that looks like this, it's a little bit like framed or labeled, would be nice. So you can have a nested thing. I mean, does that work actually? If I nest labeled stuff, does that work correctly? I mean, if I say labeled of labeled list labeled, yeah, it's okay. Although it'd be nice if it indicated. Yeah, I wonder if we can make it do that. That's a minor comment for, I guess, an ILD meeting. Can you pick that up, please?
Yep, can add it.
Like underline labeled or something.
Sure.
It could be nice to have something like that. Okay. All right. So what should we start off with?
Well, the first item on here is just this dataset option path notebook. So let's try to get through that today.
Okay.
So you need to sign off on this syntax and semantics is central to all of the dataset options. So we just need to go through these element by element, and it explains the syntax and raises the issues.
Okay. Okay. By the way, I hope something like this will get into the documentation.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So this is some kind of global spec, and this is the spec specific to a path. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can have as many things specific to paths as I want. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And the path things will clearly be non-overlapping, so they could be in an association if we felt like it.
Could be.
I'm not sure if it's
well. So, right, except that there's no key for the first element. So you can have, there's a positional syntax, which just goes down successive levels in the data set.
So this is the positional syntax.
Right, and you can have any number of those items that specify the values for successive levels. And then you can have rules which specify values for specific paths.
So I mean, what we could do is to say something like this. We could say all goes to pink, green.
Well, what you want to say is all rows, and then all columns, and then all third level things.
Well, why isn't it then one goes to, what do you want to do? It goes to pink.
I suppose it could be just a level number.
And then these things represent kind of the specific exceptions. I mean, I kind of like having that possibility.
That's
important. In a sense, this is 1, blank, blank, isn't it? No, it isn't. I'm sorry.
No.
No, it's really all, blank, blank, blank. Is that right? Does this mean alternating pink and green on successive on?
That would mean first row pink, second row green.
And does it repeat?
If you put another layer of braces, it does.
Okay.
Which is just like grid syntax.
Okay. Okay.
But Chris, is the spec compulsory?
What do you mean by compulsory?
So can I have a list of path specs without having the first spec that you have the pink green?
I would hope so.
You can have none in a position where there's nothing specified.
No. But I mean, here, what Jose is asking is, could I just have a list of highlights effectively? Boom goes to boom, boom goes to boom, etc.
Oh yeah.
So my question is that because numbers can also be paths, they would get mixed with numbers as levels.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So in this syntax, you're distinguishing a path spec by the arrowification of it.
Yeah. Paths, well, so paths are lists on the left-hand side.
Which are like extract specs.
Right, exactly. But there's also a convenient syntax. If you just say earth, naked earth goes to orange, that will color everything, every key that is earth, orange. So if you have multiple keys.
So
Right.
perhaps we can keep the first spec as lists and then have an association as the second element of.
If we wanted to, yeah. I think it's not necessary. I don't think the association is buying us something. I retract my association with association. But I don't understand your comment about earth. I don't understand.
Well, that'll become clear when we go through the items.
Okay.
So that's just a list of options.
Okay.
Okay. So
Oh my gosh.
just go by these, go through one by one.
Let's see. Am I runnable here? Let's just take a look at more fun.
You're in the prototype version, I presume. It's got to be the prototype.
I don't know if it's a prototype. It's not the prototype.
No, then it's not going to work.
Okay. All right. Fine. Then let me just hold on. Let me get it in the prototype build. I have a prototype build, although something went wrong with my. Okay, here we go. All right, so this will just make everything cyan.
Right.
Oh, that's a bit ugly. How do I get the key backgrounds to be cyan?
Use the header background option.
I see. So that's a
So
new
we
option.
talked about this. There was a suggestion that if you make the background cyan, it should also color the headers. I'm opposed to that, and
I think you're right to
have
be opposed
arguments
to it.
down below why that's not a good idea.
I kind of immediately agree with you, but I mean this is yeah, that makes it look a lot more sensible and quite nice. Okay, I'm good with this, but I mean, do you want me to kind of guess how I would deal with so if I said here background arrow light cyan comma and now I said phobos arrow orange. Oh wow. So it digs through to find every phobos.
Yes.
And oranges it.
That's a little convenience syntax.
Okay, so if I were to do that and to say radius arrow red, okay, well, this is quite nice. I mean, that's cool.
Right, and if you just want the planet radius, then you would say list all comma radius.
I see, because the moons is deeper. But if I said moons comma radius, that might not work, right?
No, it won't work.
Because I have to say all comma moons comma radius.
Exactly, and you can figure out what to say. But hover over moons, and it tells you down below all moons.
Why didn't that work?
Well, hover over. Wait a minute.
All moons.
All radius. Yeah.
Okay. Pretty nice. Okay. Onward. Well, I don't understand. Okay, none. Okay, that's because that's the only thing that's that deep.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we already did these. I like
We've
these very much.
Gone through that, yeah.
Okay, let's do this one here. Why aren't we getting more planets here? Do we lose more planets in the solar system?
I just to keep it compact, I extract
Okay.
it.
So can I get back the example data just because I just want to see what this looks like because I don't quite understand this one.
Yeah, you can.
What is it? Dataset.
List.
Why doesn't that autocomplete?
I don't know. It should.
I think it's singular.
Dataset, and then what is it called?
Dataset, comma planets.
Why isn't that auto-completing? You should report that failure to auto.
Well, it does normally. Maybe
Oh, it must be it. Oh, I see. That's okay. So that is okay. So let me understand what this does. So if I just did that, it will be green.
It'll make that made rows cyan and columns green, and the colors combine. They
Okay.
blend.
So that's what I need if I want to alternate.
Right. So what you've got is a list. The first element of the list applies to rows, and the spec says make the rows cyclically cyan and green.
Right. So if I were to go say here,
none is what you want. You want a color there, none.
Well, that's a bug which you should record, right?
It shouldn't, yeah. And now you've applied the cyclic colors to columns.
I don't understand why I needed none there. Oh, I needed
because
a color.
You're on the right-hand side. It has to be a color.
Yeah, okay, I understand. Okay, so that digs that deep. That cyan greens every column.
Yep.
So if I were to go even another level, none there, it would do that.
Yep.
Why is, I don't understand that. Cyan, so for each moon, it's
Yes.
going cyan, for each planet rather. So if I go here, it'll be very variegated.
Yep.
And we're still using this scroller for now until we combine this with table view so we can just drag this out, which I would really, really like. See what I'm saying?
Yep.
Okay. Nice. I understand those. Oh, wow. Okay. Cool. Now, if I were to give an association here, well, who knows what
It won't work.
How would you color the rows with the totals in them, the moon totals? I think we're going to get to that. Carl wants this to work in the cloud so you can share data sets. Hopefully data sets in the cloud are going to work very soon, right?
Yes, I hope so. I haven't directed my attention that way, but that's my intent.
But wait a minute, you have something to do there, or is that a pure cloud problem?
Well, I'll need to test things, and if there are problems, point them out to the cloud people.
Okay, well, can we make sure that's, Devin, can we make sure that's an active project?
Yes.
And make sure that because I agree that this is a horrible problem, and it has to do with the question whether they store in the notebook or not, right? That's the biggest issue, is you get a notebook and the thing isn't properly stored there.
The output, you mean?
Well, the full data set isn't properly stored.
So the dataset data is in the notebook by default now. Only for large data sets does it not store it.
Okay, well, when it isn't, where is it?
It's just in a cache in the kernel.
Okay, but that's not good enough, right? So that has to be set up so that there's an option to have it store in a cloud object, right?
Okay.
In the standard persistence locations. Who is dealing with that? Somebody was PMing that thing for all the different objects that have to have out of core storage, right? Yes, no. I mean, like if I say, okay, let's look at this in the most basic form here. If I say cloud publish that, now, I mean, this is going to be a slight version mismatch, but let's see what happens here.
Well, it's probably going to be a mess because the cloud has the old version of the dataset software.
Blawful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, fine. But so listen to what I'm saying about these persistent things, because this is really important and probably more important than lots of these other things, right? So we need some consistent way that when you publish to the cloud, that the thing is correctly asking you if you want to upload, and this is a mechanism, and this needs to go in the cloud development thing, I think. It wants to ask you, do you want to upload the backing data? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Devin, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think this is a question for Matt, so I can let him know.
Matt
Fine.
who?
Matt K.
Okay.
All right. Bob on live stream is asking, can you have images or equations in these? I think you can, right? I mean, there's nothing
Sure.
that stops
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
having.
You can have anything.
Yeah.
Although images currently get thumbnailed, and there's been complaints about that. My intent, which is not yet implemented, there is an option to control when things get truncated, and my intent is to apply that to thumbnailing for images. So you can.
How do I get some images of something? What can I get images of? Let's say entity list. Okay, so you're saying if I take those, great, and I say data set of that. Okay, that looks perfectly civilized. Okay, data not in notebook store now. So that's
Right.
going to mess up, right?
Yeah.
So if I publish that to the cloud, and again, we probably need to talk about this in the cloud meeting, but we probably need an option to cloud publish that either says, that says what to do with those. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think the most common thing you're going to want to do is to store them in a separate cloud object. Now, what do you want to do? You want to make these clickable or something? To get full-size images, right?
Well, no, there's a proposed option, truncation function, which determines when things get truncated and shown in shorter form. But the intent is to, if you turn off truncation for an image, that it would.
No, I understand that, but I mean, I'm saying in the default case where you thumbnail them, why not be able to click on them and bring them up to full size?
Well, click would drill down normally.
But not on an image. There's nothing to drill.
It could. I would say maybe a hover would give you the. Should give you the.
Okay, but wait a minute. Click on an image could not drill down because there's no drillability.
Yeah. Okay. You're right. Yeah. But give you the full image.
Clicking is only.
Give you. Just give you a single image, or would it?
I think it should just give that image. Boom. Pop up.
In place, you may make it larger.
No, well, it could be a pop-up here. Okay. I think it should be a pop-up. I don't think it should mess up the structure of the data set. I think it should just pop up there, like it would in any other viewer. But let me comment on another thing. The only place where there's drill down is when you're in the header area, right?
Yes, yeah, you're right.
Not the content area. So all bets are off in terms of the content area.
Well, yes, unless it's an elided form, and then you can click. I mean, it looks like an element, but you can click it and drill down.
Okay, so the question on the live stream here about highlighting the maximum cell on a column, for instance. And I mean, when we've got functions like highlight image, shouldn't we have a highlight dataset type thing that does that? That returns a dataset that has highlighting things set somehow. I mean, that's clearly something people are going to want to do, right?
So what would the scenario be? I mean, you can use options to highlight the presentation, like setting backgrounds and styles and things.
No, I understand that, but I mean, I'm saying, what is the piece of code that says go and highlight the most massive moon? So I'm saying, how grotesque is that piece of code?
Right? I see. Yeah.
And right now it's pretty grotesque.
Probably, yeah.
Right. So that we need to fix. I mean, that relates to dataset apply and all those kinds of things. But that has to do with the formatting stuff, right? So can we make a list of some of these problems to be solved? Because that's one. Devin, are you making that list, or do I need to make the list?
I'm typing out a list.
All right. Stuff. Okay. So okay. Advanced examples. Okay. Yeah, I understand that. What's this 5.6?
I just extracted a part of that.
Okay, we did this before, and I understand that. Make only Jupiter's moons. Okay. Background. Wait a minute, what's this doing? The none. Oh, I see. That means the top two moons are not colored, and then you go cyan.
No, that means the top two levels are not colored. So if you compare that to the previous...
Wait. But I thought Jupiter moons would drill down to the Jupiter moons section.
Right.
And then the result of that is all. I don't understand.
So you're saying you expected just to have a cyan green on the right-hand side and not the nuns. The reason it works that way is if it drills down first and then you start coloring from that level, then there's no way, for example, in the previous example that I showed, to color the moons cyan green by planet. You've lost the upper level if you...
Hold on. I understand this. So I thought this was a color by location type thing, right?
Yeah.
So in other words, that here, so let me just check what I'm talking about here. So if I make this thing, Jupiter moons, like I just say that whole thing is light orange. Okay, that did what I expected. Okay, now, why does it not work to say that are like this light blue? Okay, what did that do? Why didn't that give me alternating light orange, light blue?
Because you said color the top level rows, which are the planets, the first one light orange, the second one light blue, and restrict that to the Jupiter moons.
Oh God.
Section. There's a reason for that. So if you scroll back up to a previous example, the next one up, here. If it works the way you're proposing, there's no way to do this. If it first pulls out the moons and then applies cyan green to them, you can't color the moons.
No, you can't color the non-moons. What you're doing there is you're coloring the non-moon areas. The case of planets that don't have moons, you're putting coloring in there.
I'm coloring the planets alternately cyan and green, and I'm restricting that coloring to the moons area. if it first picked
I
out,
understand. I understand that. So you're
Yeah.
saying that
in order to say that I want to apply the cyan green to the moon's level, you have to put the preceding nuns in there. You just
okay,
go in there.
Okay. I got it. I understand
Yeah.
what the point is here.
Yeah.
I understand the point. I'm just thinking about this. That's pretty obscure. Because when I say Phobos arrow blah blah blah, right? Then I'm deep diving into the Phobos element, right?
Yeah.
If I say here, wherever it is, you know, let's imagine I did this. And God knows what that's going to do. Okay, but that's deep doved. And I don't understand the relationship between, okay, so this is saying at this address, deep dive and do this, right? The other one is saying not at that address, but actually do something globally, but merely restrict it to the thing defined by that address.
It's always doing that. So you said make the planets alternately cyan and green. That makes Jupiter cyan. And then you said restrict that to Metis.
So wait a second. If I'm doing up here, okay? If I'm up here, so it's a question of where the cookie cutter starts cookie cuttering from, so to speak, in some sense.
Yeah.
If I say light orange here, then what that will do is to make the moon area, I see it'll just do that. Okay, so the question is the only issue when it makes any difference to have, it's when I'm trying to decide what the phase is of my alternation.
Right. Does it start where you've drilled down to, or does it start at the top? That's I think is what you're trying to say.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say. Right. So in other words, basically what you're saying is there exists a predefined set of stripes or whatever, and you are merely, cutting out the part of the cookie. The cookie already has its stripes on it, so to speak.
Right.
And then you are merely defining with the left-hand side there which part of the cookie dough you're going to chop out, so to speak.
Right. And the reason I did it that way around was that that's more flexible than doing it the other way around.
I agree with you. And it will make things line up properly. Right. But it's only relevant. So in the documentation, you can explain the uniform case first. Right. The uniform case, you never have this issue. This issue is an issue of phase, basically, in the repeating things. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Fine. I think you did the right thing. But it's pretty obscure, and you should make sure to explain the non-repeating thing before you try to explain the repeating thing in the documentation.
Uh-huh.
So one more comment at that point. So this Metis case.
Sorry, I just coughed. Excuse me. What were you saying?
Yes. So yes, this case you have now in the middle of the screen. This Metis will go deep and look for Metis wherever it is.
Yes.
While if Metis was wrapped in a list, would look only at the first level, right?
Yes.
So that means if there's a list key, you're kind of toasted.
So I think that's the difference, that we are used to one thing meaning at the first level. Like when we say part one, meaning at the first level, while this is not that. So this idea of go deep and look for this, I think it's the new thing here, which.
I agree.
So you're saying the conventional interpretation of a naked Metis would be Metis at the first level?
Yes.
Right.
Although this is useful.
This is useful, but yeah, we need to be careful with that.
Right. So just so I understand here, if I were to go for Tarquek, whatever that is, how can there be anyway, never mind, I'm not even going to ask what the order is. Okay, so wait a minute. But if I were to go to Pan, that better be green. Okay,
No,
totally
no, because the planets are colored alternately cyan green. Saturn is cyan.
But I was at Jupiter just now, and that was also cyan. Look. Oh, no. Yeah, that's just not right.
Well, wait a minute. Put all on the left-hand side. Right.
So there's a problem because
There's a
Tarquek.
bug there. That doesn't seem right to me. You're right.
Yeah, okay. Because Tarquek should be green.
Yep. Looks like a bug.
Okay. Okay, there's questions. By the way, there's a couple of comments here that it will be good to have an example data set, 2 example data sets that are both good ideas. Mammals, cats, leopards, snow leopards will be a good, nice hierarchical data set to have. We should generate a few other examples because we always seem to use this planets one. And the other one is continent, country, city, another fine one that we could just generate a few of. Makes sense for the example data thing, just so we're not always using the exact same thing. Plus, we can have some cool pictures of snow leopards at the end or whatever. Okay, let's see. There's a suggestion here that we could actually put an operator in the end of the sequence where instead of saying all, we could actually have an operator in the background specification.
No. So the left-hand side is intentionally restricted, so it can only name a branch of the tree. The reason being, if it doesn't name just a branch, if it can name parts that are separated, the code is impossible because it doesn't know when it's counting. It would have to look at the entire data set, even if you're scrolling to just a small portion of it in order to do the coloring. If it does an entire block, it can do it efficiently. That's why it's restricted.
Okay, well, that seems like an implementation issue, but conceptually, this seems interesting. I mean, it wouldn't be max, it would be take largest, because that would be giving that subsection, right? In other words, just like I can say in the data set, I could pick Jupiter Moon's radius, right?
Yeah.
If I should be able to just take wherever that data set is, if I say here, I think I can just say, if I'm not mistaken, is this right? Oh, I have to say take largest. What do I have to do here?
It'd be Jupiter Moon's all radius.
No. Here we go. This is what we do it. It's before that in the query sequence, right? There we go.
Yeah. I actually had earlier, I had a syntax that would allow you to do this kind of thing, not with operators, but with patterns. And it introduces a big inefficiency.
Well, okay, but the inefficiency is just an implementation issue. I mean, we could think about this.
Well, just an implementation issue, maybe. Yeah. It means it means even if you're scrolling in a large data set and you're looking at a tiny window, you still have to look through the entire data set to figure out how to apply options.
But you already know what the options are.
I know what the options are, but I don't know if
because so you cache the results.
I have to count. I have to count elements as they come by to know where in the cycle I am when I'm doing cyclic coloring.
Okay, forget cyclic coloring. I mean, if this is about a major feature that can't be done because of cyclic coloring, we can easily elide cyclic coloring for certain cases.
Okay, there may be some cases where it can be done efficiently.
This seems to me like something quite interesting. I mean, because this would allow you you know, if you want to show the largest moon by radius, this would do that. See what I'm saying? This would target the largest moon by radius.
Yeah.
Which is pretty nice.
Yeah.
So that would keep the background specification, the left-hand side of the background spec. I really like this. I really, really like this. I mean, people might also want to annotate the size by a color, right? That's a different issue, right? To apply a function that shows, and this is something we're going to have to deal with, that shows, you know, colors, makes a background color based on from red to green or something.
That's already implemented.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, that's coming.
Okay, exciting. All right. Okay, but anyway, minor comment on this. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. That would be very nice. I have to think about what we can do now. Yeah.
The question on the live stream, is there a way to prevent the empty cells from being highlighted? To make these cells be unhighlighted?
Not currently. I mean, unless you go in and explicitly override them.
Right. That seems relevant to think about that. Let's pin that issue, okay? I mean, because those are pieces where I couldn't get to them with any extract syntax, basically. All right, can we, okay, let's continue. People complaining about having to retype none, 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 none. Yeah, well, it's kind of like a spliced sequence thing. But there isn't a good syntax for that at this time. I mean, that's like saying repeated and cyclic things, having a symbolic syntax for repeated elements in a list or cyclic elements in a list. I mean, the truth is, you know, one could imagine, now that we've had in the world of nothing, one could imagine something like this. Auto expanding to XXXXX 7 times. It's actually kind of an interesting idea. And then that would also allow you to cyclically put things down. I kind of like that idea, actually. Let's discuss that ILD discussion, okay?
Yeah, sure. I can add it.
Jose, do you have any immediate reaction to this?
To this replicated? No.
I think it's
I've
interesting.
discussed in the past the idea of symbolic levels and symbolic positions, like bands and things like that.
Yeah, I kind of like this. Does anybody know where I should be saving this? Where should I be saving this, please?
You have a folder called Dataset, and there's a meeting notes folder inside of that folder.
Okay, save there. Okay. Okay, Lucas on a live stream says, one problem allowing operators is there's no way to tell which element returned by the operator corresponds to which element of the data set. E.g., if you have repeated items and you use random sample as an operator, which is the duplicate, which, yeah, I understand. But we're talking here, right, the things that are returned, I think it's a different problem, is that you're not returning the index in the data set. And there's a certain argument that some of these operators, like a map indexed, should be able to reference something, some symbolic thing that represents your current location in the data set. So in other words, if I map through the data set, it's like if I do a map index through the data set, I will be seeing, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, if I were to do just so I understand. If I were to take this guy here, line 45, and I were to do a map indexed of a print of a print #2. Now let's just do #1, #2. Line 45. Let's say pick randomly at level 3. Okay. It's very weird. What's the kilograms doing there? That was the second part of a quantity object.
Yeah.
I see. So this is, so in map indexed, I'm seeing these key designations. That's kind of cool, actually, what I see here. Okay, fine. It works as it should do. Wow. Funky, funky. Okay, right. So it's just replaced everything at level 3 by nulls. All right, okay, onward we go. Okay, function values. What's this?
What you just asked about.
Oh,
So in place of any option value, you can have a function that returns a value. But in order to be recognized, a function has to explicitly have head function.
well, let's see. So, okay, well, that's nice. That's cool.
So how about the arguments? Does that seem okay? Item, path, and data set.
Thinking.
If you,
So this is like a map indexed. And feeding the whole data set to this thing.
there's an example of why you would want that.
First of #2. Okay.
It just colors by groups of 3.
Yep.
So this is a case where you need the entire data set. This colors the entire row that contains the sex, that color.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this looks pretty good. It's an interesting issue that well, we can't change it these days, but map indexed could have taken the whole expression as another function argument. We can't do that anymore, but okay. All right. Convenience
We
syntax.
talked about this.
Yep. Okay. Equivalent syntaxes. Yes, I understand. That's the top level. Why is it all in braces? Why is it not all without braces? Let's try it. Let's try. Let me just understand. If I don't brace the all.
Not sure if that'll work or not. It does work.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
I can't explain offhand why it does work.
I think it should obviously work.
Make sure it's intentional. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it should work. I don't see why it wouldn't work. I mean, so if I were to say here, if I were to rather obscurely say all there, oh, I see. If I were to say, no, how do I get it to do row alternation? I'm sorry, column alternation.
On the right-hand side, put a none first. So in other words, you want it to apply to the second level.
Okay. So is that way of defining the, the cookie dough striping, is that how grid works as well?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I've never ever understood it. Okay.
Well,
so
I mean
that stripes first, basically.
the spec syntax is the same as grid, but the positional syntax is different. And if you keep going, I address that.
Okay, but I mean this particular thing, but this, you're saying this is the same. If I were to do this for a grid, what happened here?
No, you can just take the right-hand side.
This should work.
No, grid is, I mean, this is much more general than grid syntax. So
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. That's like the first element of the background thing before you get to the specific location type things. Presumably this could be backported to grid.
Yeah.
Another thing to think about. Okay, allowed values. I assume they can be key of and so on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you already understand that.
Okay, so this is the header story. It's not really called key background?
No. I think it should be.
Don't know. I mean, it seems odd to call it a header when it's on the left and so on. I mean, those things will always be keys, won't they? That's the way you get those gray things.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks fine as a header when it's at the top, but when it's at the side, I think it's less clear.
Mm-hmm.
We have table headers with the same problem in table form.
All right, let's put that on the side. Let's leave it as header for right now, but I want to think about that again. Okay, Brian on our live stream is asking, don't see how to highlight the moon total rows in the planets data set. How are they selected?
Do you mean to change their background color?
Those guys.
Yeah. Well, there's not really a good way to do that because that's a stand-in for a bunch of items.
Okay, but still,
have all sorts of different colors.
Okay, but just like you have a header background, there's an argument that you have a tailor background, so to speak. So in some sense, I mean, that's a tail of some kind. I'm being a little bit silly there, but I mean, that is a definite piece of the data set.
Yeah, right? Okay, well, I'll think about that. Yeah.
Because you are going to want that somehow. I mean, because those, in fact, in general, there should be a way to specify what kind of thing gets written there.
Yes, and I do have a provision for that, which may also allow you to do what he's asking.
Okay. Okay, fine. Highlights the hell over the columns that would be got, but that. I see. Yes, I understand. Okay. Oh my gosh. All right.
So there's a meeting on the 11th to talk about this issue in general.
Spannery.
Yeah.
Lucas is asking on the live stream, why do data sets not, I mean, why do associations not allow things? And they do. They perfectly happily allow part specification. That too is not that, yeah. Okay, okay, let us continue. Okay, I'm sorry. You'd say there's a meeting to discuss spans?
Yeah.
Boy, with me?
Yeah.
I don't think it's with you, Steve.
No.
Yeah, it's Stephen. You're not included, but it will be brought back up in an LCD meeting.
Terrific. Okay.
Cool.
Because I think that these span things are a good idea, and I think you should be using the span syntax for them. All right, data set allows spec on rule right-hand side, grid does not. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, I understand that that's not working at this time. Hopefully it will at some point. So about the notebook further up. I'm not sure what Lucas is mentioning here. Not sure. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, list ambiguity. Rows cyan, columns green. I agree. That's what I expected. What? Oh, yes, because it hasn't yet gone into repeating mode.
Yeah, it would need another level of braces.
Yeah, I'm not particularly, well, that syntax might be useful. I think that syntax was more important at the time when we were using this as a way to make headers in grids. You see what I'm saying? With the first two rows, like it might be, or the first row might be a header in a grid, right?
Yeah.
But that's not relevant for what we're doing now, but I think it's too confusing to change that.
Well, the most useful thing is cyclic colors, so you can scan across the data set easily.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I mean, there's a certain argument that we should have some named themes here. Do we have dataset themes?
No.
We probably should. I mean, something like a plot theme that, you know, we could have a line printer version, which is alternating, you know, green and white. You and I both know that. Some of the younger folk here do not. I think it'd be really nice to have some themes for dataset, because again, that would also allow one to have the different colors for gray and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, basically a theme is just a setting of a bunch of these options.
Right.
All right, exception for alignment and item size.
So these are options whose values can be lists, which gives yet a third level of ambiguity. And in order to make them behave the way you would expect, it greedily tries to interpret a list as a single value and then defaults to interpreting them as specifying levels or specs.
I see.
Otherwise,
it's a huge mess.
It's a huge mess. Without that exception, you see the second example there is what you would have to.
Yeah, it's kind of why we have directive and things in graphics, is to package things in non-list ways.
It would be nice if there were some way to indicate that that's an atomic element, but we don't.
Again, something we could consider, but I don't think we read it. Yeah, okay. That seems okay.
So in the background option, colors blend.
That's really funky. I mean,
that's what grid does, and that's what makes the, you know, if you have alternating colors and rows and columns.
I understand. I don't know exactly what the right blend is, though.
Oh, it's just blend with no argument other than the colors.
Okay, there's a note, according to Lucas, that says keys allowed only for associations, indices only for lists, and all in both cases. What's that mean?
In the path,
yeah,
you cannot use an index where in an association, you can't ask for the first element of an association. That could be supported, but it takes a lot of work.
Okay, fine. So that's not a semantic design issue. That's an implementation issue at this time.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so pin it as another thing. Okay, column color overrides row color. In
So in the
separate
first example,
specifications.
those colors are within a single spec, they combine. But if you have separate specs, then the later ones override the earlier ones.
I think that's correct, yeah. Yep, seems right to me. Look, this blending thing is a little odd, and I'm just wondering whether the actual blend is, I guess that's what it is. There's not a lot of choice there. Item style combining and not overriding.
So in item style, you can specify, bold, italic, font size. And the way it combines those is like things override and unlike things combine.
As opposed to colors, if I were to say red, green in item style, the last one in the drill down wins.
Yes.
It doesn't try and blend them.
It doesn't blend. It only blends for background.
As opposed to last wins in background. So you're saying background blends, but everything else last wins.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that what it does for grid?
Yeah, background does that.
Okay.
Okay, so this is my argument why background should not color the headers. So currently, what gets colored depends only on its index within a data set. If it were to color headers, it breaks that because headers
Fine.
can shift.
I don't disagree. I
Okay.
think having a separate track for coloring headers makes sense.
Okay, okay. And you can't make sense of cyclic colors.
No, you cannot. Yeah. Totally weird.
Okay, so you asked this in a previous meeting.
That meeting was a while ago.
Yes.
The Earth has gone halfway around the sun in that time. Okay, fine. What is this? Coloring top level. So what did I ask? How you would apply an option to the topmost level only.
Right. So if you just say earth yellow, it colors everything in the earth row. But you were asking if you only wanted to color mass and radius and not the lower level things.
I mean, what about a pattern, mass, vertical bar, radius there?
No, that I disallowed that for that reason I explained earlier.
Which reason?
That you can't implement it efficiently for large data sets.
Okay, again, I would like to pin that issue because I claim there may be an algorithm for doing that.
All right. You can actually specify that. I don't disallow that, but there are cases where it won't work properly.
Okay, but anyway, what you're explaining here is how to, whether there could be a syntax for saying the first level for Earth, but nothing deeper.
Yeah.
Don't let it seep down to the deeper levels. Because otherwise, in this case,
I suppose you maybe if you say Earth comma all, well, I mean that's potentially one way to do it, but it breaks the principle that if you use extract, that you get what gets colored.
Well, I mean, I could imagine some weird thing with Earth comma inherited or something.
Well, I don't think inherited is right.
It's not quite right, but it's this thing is Earth with as much trailing indexery as you feel like, right? Yeah, that's what this is doing.
Yeah, I mean, I presume there's no way to use part to. I mean, you can't indicate that in part, right?
Which Earth with everything trailing?
No, only the top level elements of Earth. You can't ask for the mass and the radius without getting all the moons as well. What I'm saying is, if it works,
I get it.
If it works here,
it's a tree, and you're getting a subtree.
Yeah.
And what you want is well, you can use level, to get just a particular level. Right, that would give you just a particular level, but it would then give you the top of the subtree of moon.
Yeah.
I don't think this is the most heinous thing in the world, but I agree that there's an issue, a slight issue with this.
Yeah.
Be nice to have a way to do that.
I think this belongs to manipulation of rugged arrays, which part is not good.
Yeah, I agree, because part is very hierarchical.
Right. Very rectangular oriented.
Okay. How to undo coloring at lower levels. Look, white isn't really necessarily what we want.
Right, it should be probably inherited, or, well, you could put automatic there. Would have the same effect.
Will that work?
Should. No. Is that
automatic
correct?
is what it's doing there with should be what it does with inherited. I think automatic should revert. I don't think automatic should mean take what you already got. I think that should be inherited.
Okay.
Because in this case, for the background, automatic background should surely be the automatic default for the whole. Well, it's not obvious to me. I think it should be the automatic default for whatever the default was for that theme.
Right. I'll have to think about that. I think there was a reason I made it work this way, but I can't recall what it was.
Okay, but overwriting, it's like the graphic designer's trick of you just, put a little patch of color over something. That's really not on, I think, in terms of reverting to the base color.
Yeah.
This is a mess.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm withdrawing my claim there.
Okay. Good. We got through that notebook. That's progress.
Is that the thing we just...
Yeah.
What is this horror?
So you suggested at one point that we should, if you want to like color items in a data set, you could wrap them with item, and then that would evaporate when it gets evaluated and changed into dataset options. And I couldn't come up with any case where that was more elegant than just specifying the option.
What do you mean? I mean, for the option, you have to go all kinds of drill down, and it's
no. I mean, look at those examples. Those examples show you what you have to do in both cases.
I don't understand. I mean, what I'm suggesting is that you say, table if prime q of n item n, well, prime q of n here. Item n background arrow if prime q of n yellow, otherwise white.
Right. And you can do that much easily with just like in that second example.
No, but you can't. I mean, no, but
yes.
I don't even know why that didn't show the items. Why didn't it show the items? Does item not format?
Does item work outside a grid?
Well, but I'm just surprised item doesn't, I mean, wow, I didn't know that. It's kind of interesting. That might be useful for some other purposes too. Wow, maybe item is the thing we should be using more widely. Okay, my point is, I don't want to have to be doing some weird, wacky thing with options.
It's not weird and wacky. It's exactly what you specified using item, except you put it in the option. It's exactly the same.
No, it's not exactly the same. It's not exactly the same. In this case, I've got the data annotated in some way.
Right. I think Steven's point is that you can move the data around without worrying where it is.
Exactly. If I want my particular moons of Jupiter or something, or whatever it is, to be green in the background,
You mean without specifying a function to do it?
yeah, without specifying any stuff with the options. It's just in the data. It's just like graphics. Imagine if in graphics you had to be able to say, oh, this particular set of points in the graphics, which are referred to by index number such and such, turn them green. I strongly think this is worthwhile. And I want to know if it's not that one, the thing that I had here. And I want to know if this is implementable.
When would you construct an entire data set by hand so that you have that item wrapped around particular moons?
Well, and when you're using it primarily for formatting, probably. In other words, you would take your data set, you've done all kinds of processing, and then you go, and in that data set, there are tons of things basically for display, for information display.
Right, but you would apply the item programmatically. You wouldn't just go in and wrap it around some particular
Yes,
moon,
you would.
right?
Yes, you would, because you're constructing a data structure that has certain items symbolically highlighted in some way.
So you're talking about working with a raw input form of the data set, and you
That
just
is
go
what
in
I'm
and
talking
stick
about.
in
Yes.
items here and there.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
I think that's going to be a very rare case.
I think this links with the question of if we have a data set with multiple of these options and we do operations on it, like extracting a subset.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
What do we do with it?
Well, that's a mess. It's the code will eventually have to restructure the options when it does that, but for now, it's just going to have to strip them out.
Okay, so this is similar to the calculus of annotation stuff for graphs. How much of the annotation do you leave?
Right. But this is an advantage of item because we can preserve item wherever it is. And it carries its own stuff.
Exactly.
Wait a minute. Preserve item in the data.
In other words, if you reconstitute the data set. Now, I admit that having item be ignored in operations on the data set is kind of funky, right? In other words, you could say that item is something which is an ignored feature of the value in the data set. So whatever you're doing to the values of the data set, it digs inside item to look at the value inside item and treats that as the value of that element of the data set.
So you're talking about a different thing than the original suggestion. The original suggestion was item gets stripped and moved into the data set options, but you're talking about actually preserving item in the data.
I am actually, yes. I've changed my tune here. Yes,
so
you're
that's
correct.
a different discussion.
You're correct. And what I'm suggesting is something much different, actually, and a better idea, in my view, which is to allow items in the data set that affect formatting, but do not affect evaluation semantics.
Yeah. So what's the difference then between item and style?
Well, style, good question. Good question. Well, item has things like background, which style of something with background just shrink wraps the thing around the like if I say style,
right,
red or something. Whoops, well that's a bad example. Background red, it'll shrink wrap, right? Whereas item, puffs out to its enclosing region.
I see. Mm-hmm.
And I would argue that item is something which is not, drilled into the value. That item is ignored when you compute things with the value because it is merely annotation for, this is very similar to what we have to deal with graphs. And by the way, it's possible that we could use the whole annotation rules mechanism here. I think that's worth looking at. Okay.
Yeah. course, that's different than the way item behaves in grid.
How does item behave in grid?
Well, it doesn't, I mean, it's not ignored if you map something over the grid.
I know. Perhaps a mistake. Oh boy, we got a lot of stuff here. Is this, we have another meeting tomorrow, don't we, about
Yes.
this? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, I think I'm too hungry here. I'm afraid it's my dinner time. Wait. You're making more and more arguments for this, which I don't believe. Okay, yeah, Sandra on the live stream is pointing out that the advantage of options is that the data itself could potentially be packed more efficiently, and that's certainly true. And Lucas is mentioning, right, a possibility to style multiple headers in one go.
Yes.
Right, you're suggesting that there is a list of lists of the header addresses. Are you seeing that suggestion?
No. Is it in the?
Oh, here. So it's suggesting that this is similar to the map at. After a list indicates a path, and a list of positions at the first level. Right. So that's a part. That's like the multi-part, using a list for the multi-part feature of map at.
Yeah.
Yes, extract does the same thing. Here we must be careful with all.
But that introduces another ambiguity with the level syntax and the spec syntax.
Right. Pin this in the list of things to look at. I don't know right now. Maybe that can't work.
So
Maybe.
So the suggestion here is that should color all anything.
No, it should cover the mass and radius. It's just a way to.
Oh, I see. Mass and radius columns.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you can. Yeah. Okay. You can do that currently using alternative, but I don't support that for the reason I explained.
Okay. All right. Let's go on with this tomorrow. Yeah, I just want to say, is there any chance we're going to get resizable?
No, zero chance not for 12.1.
Okay, but in principle, is it doable in the same way that table view has resizability?
Well, certainly it's doable. I don't think it's easily doable. So you're suggesting you would have a resize area and it would jump to discrete sizes, exposing more columns or rows, right?
Well, let's look at what table view does. So I mean, table view,
I mean, it has a view into an infinite plane, which is different.
I understand, but after you, I mean, I think what it would do is what grid would do if you resize the window, right? I mean, so in other words, this is like what you get. In other words, it's like resizing, and like columns can be wider, they can have more in them and so on. So it isn't really, I guess I'm wrong that it's like table view. Okay, so here, let's say 30-30. By the way, those thumbs are different from your thumbs. I mean, those scroll bars are different from your scroll bars.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this case, it does that. So what it's doing here is it just literally slices, which I don't think is the best behavior. And for dataset, what will be really nice is to see it. I mean, okay, I admit this is non-trivial. Allocate the space between the different elements. See what I'm saying?
Are you saying you want to change the column widths? Or do you want to
I think in a perfect world, yes. I mean, just
expose, well, I mean, do you want to expose more things, or do you want to just make the things that are shown bigger?
Oh, I would like to.
More space.
Okay. If there are more things to expose, definitely expose more things. If everything is already exposed, I think it will be nice to be able to give the things that are there, you know, like if they had to wrap text on multiple lines and things, where it had to elide the text, give it more space. But I would say the number one reason to resize this is, okay, so what I'm suggesting is when you can't see everything, see more when you make it bigger.
Mm-hmm.
When you can see everything, start being plusher with the, you know, with the area given to each item.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that can certainly be done, but it's not a trivial thing.
I understand. It seems desirable. And all of these things need to work in the cloud nicely so that we can actually get data sets properly shared in the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Well, very nice work. Very nice work, as usual. Yeah, a lot of detail, a lot of good things. All right, so we will continue tomorrow. And thank you to everybody on the live stream. There were very helpful comments. I can even tell you, let me tell you when this is continuing tomorrow. Oh, look at that. We got an hour and a half. 4:30 Eastern time tomorrow afternoon. So look forward to seeing everybody there. Okay, good stuff.
Right.
Thanks
Thank
a lot.
you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.